So I'll talk a little bit about what I remember as much as I can, I guess. The memories that I have processed already still cause my body to physiologically react when I start to go through the memory. I can't help but go into fight or flight, and I can't help but cry, just tears, no matter what. It just happens. Whether I feel sad or not doesn't matter. My body has to release the emotion almost immediately now for me to be able to continue living the day. So it's just tears. It comes out in tears, which I actually think is brilliant. Our bodies knew how to overcome trauma as fast as possible with these tear ducts, because our immune system literally believes something's wrong, that it has to attack to come help us. And that's what I believe tears are, that the emotion is in your lymph, literally, and it moves to wherever it feels needs help. So it's a very intricate and sophisticated system, but when it gets stuck or wired wrong, it is not helpful. It doesn't serve me. And it doesn't serve most people when it's stuck on. That's called complex PTSD. When you have multiple triggers over multiple times, over multiple contexts, it's called complex CPTSD. So they were systematically torturing us to get our fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response into the response that they wanted, which for me it was fawn. Fawning response is what animals do to try to keep from being eaten. They fawn. They try to offer something different in their stead, or they offer a limb, or they defecate and offer that and run away. Don't eat me. Here, have this instead. This is kind of what the fawning response is. It's also looking too cute to eat. Like cats do the fawning. Their eyes get really big, and that kind of sad, please don't hurt me. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't hurt me. So the fawning response can be beneficial to predators. It is beneficial to predators, because if your normal survival instinct is to give whatever you have, whatever is around you, to get out of it, then wiring you at 2, 3, 4, 5 years old through abuse in that way is very beneficial to abusers all around. It's a response that will just trigger without consciousness. So people pleasing, codependence, people who are learned helpless, they've got learned helplessness, they just don't know how to help themselves. A lot of these people have been wired into a fawn response, a negative fawn response. So we were systematically tortured through vision. So they would have us watch things that were very frightening and painful, and let us know that if we didn't stay in line, if we didn't do what they wanted, then these things would happen to us. And I remember multiple kids, almost every memory that I have. So they were doing it in groups. They were taking groups of kids and training them into a psychological torture session, so that the actual abuse that they wanted to perform on us would go smoothly. We wouldn't fight. We wouldn't. We would be able. We'd be able to endure the pain and the situations, and some of the rituals that did include sacrifice and things that children don't understand and shouldn't, nobody really should be a part of. So sometimes I want to go through the memories with people, but it triggers flashbacks pretty strong, and walking through those processes is so taxing. It's like a self-care process. Red doors are a trigger. Even thinking about red doors is a trigger. The color red is a trigger. Halloween was a trigger for a while because they wore robes. Some of the rituals, they had big black robes on, the adults. And that one makes me shake. It doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. I start to physically shake if I see someone walking around in a big black robe. The problem is, the map in my mind is not the reality that I'm living because of these triggers. I have to associate my reality way more often and way more logically than most people, because the response in my brain goes, that person, that thing, that color, that right there, that hurt you. And the response is automatic. And for me, the PTSD and the CPTSD started to dissipate. The flashbacks started to dissipate when I found somebody that could show me how to find the space between the trigger, the memory, and the physiological function. And to do that, you have to use multiple sensories, and you have to know how to bring yourself to that point. It's state management. If you see boxers, when boxers are coming out, MMA fighters, when these guys are coming out, they have a specific song that they listen to that pumps them up, that gets their, whether it's classical to calm them, or it's, We Will Rock You Queen to pump them up. It's state management. They're trying to get into a state of mind for this match. They're trying to get disassociated so that they can handle the pain, but still have the muscle memory to make the calculated decisions for survival. And none of the counselors that I had in Utah taught me that. None of them taught me state management the way that I needed it. So when I get triggered by a window or a red door and I feel a flashback coming on, my body goes, oh, see that? You need to run. And I have a few things physically that I have to do to find the space between the physiological function of my body and the memory, the somatic memory of my past, and the reality that I'm actually living, I'm just in a classroom. That is the reality. And the map in my mind turns into, no, that window you need to jump out of because these people want to hurt you. I have to state manage pretty frequently in a couple different scenarios. And it's not hard anymore. It's almost automatic. I've trained myself, I've conditioned myself back into a pretty normal response where I can judge what's going on. I don't lose my judgment faculties. I don't lose my locus of control as far as like I realize that I'm safe, but my body can't help but continue through the memory till the end. And I just have to let it go. I have to let it process. State management is a coping skill that should be taught to every child in preschool, and then retaught and reframed to every child in middle school, and then retaught and reframed to every child in state management is the only way that we can succeed in life in any case. So it's important. There are still things that I can't manage through yet, and I've put those in compartments, and it's helpful to know how to compartmentalize and how to, because they don't leave, you guys. Like, you push things away, it stays, but you can't find it when it's needed, or to work on it when it's needed, to get past it, to process it, to come through for yourself. When you compartmentalize, you place it in a certain spot, and you know it's there, and you can say, hold on, I'll be back, we'll deal with this, don't worry. And it can sit there for a long time, honestly, before you work through it. And this is what I would call shadow work. Carl Jung, he basically talks about taking shadows and working through them because they are a part of you. You have to learn how to do that. And people don't realize that it's not hard work once you find the state management and the mapping system for your mind to be able to go through that territory. And it is like you have to find your inner child and go collect them and corral them into safety and keep them where they're safe. And your life will change, you guys. Everybody's been through trauma. Everybody's had something very hard happen that they don't like to think about, that they don't want to talk about because it's too overwhelming. And I'm telling you, you have to, because your brain reverts to suicide. My brain reverts to suicide to escape the pain and the overwhelm. But when I go through it and I process and plan my suicide, when I walk all the way through that shadow to the end, I come out the other side and I realize I don't want to do that. I really don't. But it's because I process all the way through it. I follow through to the end, and I'm not allowing the emotion to well up into an impulse I can't control. This is what happens. We stuff the emotion down, we stuff the trauma down because it's too overwhelming, and we want to stay apathetic. Apathetic is easy. But when you deal with those emotions and they well up, sometimes the bad things in us come out. And the thought process that our brains go through to get out of scenarios isn't pretty always. We think of homicide. we think of suicide. How do we deal with this problem? How do we deal with this pain? How do we deal with this overwhelm? When you lose a child in any way, this is what parents go through. The process of trying to grieve for things is such a necessary thing to finish. You have to finish this process. You have to get to the end. You have to acknowledge that I want to kill someone right now because of the pain I'm in. I can't handle it. Who can I kill? You? Or no? Me? Maybe. We get in these functional processes that are dysfunctional. And we don't want to talk about it because everybody around us thinks, why do you feel that way? What happened? Well, I don't know why I feel like I want to shoot everybody in a devil mask and a hooded cloak on Halloween. I literally, either you're dying or I'm dying. That's the only feeling I have. And I didn't understand it for years. I didn't understand it. And I couldn't talk about it for years. I can't play games because the games that they taught us, there was a game called Rape in the Dark, literally Rape in the Dark. And I can't tell you how many times my friends wanted to play Murder in the Dark, and I was literally screaming inside, no, not that game. Please, God, not that game. And they're all having fun, and I'm crying under the table. And I don't even know how to stop the process. I had to go home from sleepovers all the time because of games. I've been called a baby a few times. But I had a process I couldn't control and I didn't understand that was functioning without restraint inside of me, without awareness, and without support. They tried to medicate me in 3rd grade. I failed school, you guys. I failed school, really. I did not pass math once. I would be described as a person who literally couldn't do math. It's called calculia. Calculia. It's a diagnosis for someone who is unable to do math. And for some reason, that trauma that I suffered made numbers unavailable to me. Unavailable, you guys. To try to remember that kind of shit when I was a kid, it didn't happen. And I failed math every year of school. Every single year. I took summer school. 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. I was in summer school 12th grade. After all my friends they graduated. And I was still at my high school taking math and science. Y'all. Slipping through the cracks. Just slipping through every crack. I'm not bitter or upset or anything. But I want people to realize every single child I've ever met that the parents told me they had ADHD or that they were medicated, I immediately think, who abused you that your parents don't even know? Who abused you that your parents don't even know when you were too young to even understand? These processes disrupt in the same way a lot. It's systematic and it's scientific a lot. My state management skills took years to even feel. So I want you guys to realize that there are some very simple things that you can do for PTSD. Very simple. And it seems like that can't be because this is complicated. My life is complicated. My trauma is complicated. I can't even tell you some of the shit and some of the gore and some of the things that have been done to and that I have seen. it's unfair for me to say it out loud around other human beings because it's traumatizing to say it out loud. It would be unfair for me. There are things that you can do for PTSD that are so simple it seems stupid, but it takes time and conditioning, and you have to do it practicing over and over and over for years before you even feel it. Before you feel it, you guys. So people give up, and then instead we're medicated. And I'm not dissing medication. I am just saying that we're throwing Skittles at a pond, and I don't think it's gonna be the answer in the end. It wasn't for me. Proverbially, I suck my thumb. That's my skill. My state management skill is I've learned how to suck my thumb without sticking it in my mouth. And I use my hand for state management, and all I have to do is touch a finger and think of a committed statement, a mantra that I have for myself that I even created. And then I go to the next mantra and I pull myself out of flashbacks. And my thumb is my state of mind that I am absolutely critically in control of what I have control of. And I am absolutely aware of what I don't have control of. So, just went through a roundabout. In the end, when I'm triggered, I'll teach you guys how I bring myself back and associate where I'm at and who I am and what's actually happening in an instant. Anxiety gone, emotional status is in check, and I can function properly and completely, and I'm aware. And that's what I must do when I don't have weed. I must do it if I don't have weed. If I do have weed, I don't have to do it. I don't need it. I don't need to touch my fingers and suck my thumb to remind my body that I'm okay and I'm in control. But when I was 2 years old, it was wired wrong. So those are my two options right now. I either have weed and I can just function, or I have to go through a hand mnemonic and do neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I was taught by a man from Liverpool, England, and it worked after 8 counselors in Utah didn't. 2 counselors in Washington. The counselors in Washington helped more than the ones in Utah for sure. The one from England, he gave me the tools that I was missing, that I kept going back to the counselors. And I think it's set up that way on purpose, and we'll chat more about that later.